and also the launch of the exhibition catalog for Dada in the House. We're very excited to let this all get started. My name is Melissa. I'm the director and senior curator of the Newhouse Center for Contemporary Art. We are Staten Island's leading incubator for bold and innovative art, focusing in on these stories of Staten Island artists, New York City artists, connecting history to architecture, to the contemporary moment, and all things in between. And we're really happy with just the tone of this season. It's really been about celebrating our community through fashion, through storytelling, through performance art, and so we're really thrilled just to create space for this today. And yeah, I just want to give a shout out to Mary Campbell, who isn't here today. Viv will go into detail later, but Mary spent so much time and effort designing the publication, and she unfortunately couldn't be here today. But just want to acknowledge just what a real, what a real project it is to put things like this together, and she created such a stunning catalog. So just saying that, so Viv, I'm going to give it over to you to introduce the panel.
My name is Vivian, and I am so happy to see everyone here and to have this show, Dada in the House. It's been 20 years that our group has performed on Staten Island, and we want to thank the Newhouse. Thank you so much. Helping to put this together, all the meetings, all the time, and we are so proud to be here. Thank you. Of course, there's the Dada team that I want to thank, not individually, because there's hundreds of us. In any group of artists, if you said to them, how many people have actually been in a Dada show, or seen one, or been pulled into a dance at an event, it would be a lot of people. But we do have Lydia Gray, who is responsible for all the video that you see in the show, all the archiving, all the putting that together. So Lydia, she makes it look easy, but she lived with us for part of the time putting the show together, and I know she put in late hours because I could see the light under the door. And of course, we mentioned Mary Campbell, who is such an organizer, such a passionate person about graphics, about design. She's created the look of the group. She created this labor of love, and that's her right in the middle, and she's waving, so waving to her. And these are available here. Okay. And I just want to thank all of the artists who lent all the props in the other show. Mary Campbell, who put that whole mail art show together, the Dada Domicile. And it's a group, it's a cooperative. You can't do it alone. You need all these people. So I want to thank everyone who's ever helped. So thank you. Today we gather for Fluxus panel with performances. And as you know, many Dada artists have been influenced by the experimental art of the Fluxus movement. And today we're gathering together to talk about maybe some influences, the different kinds of performance art that's part of Dada and part of Fluxus, the priority of process, the interactiveness, especially with Dada, we really emphasize audience participation. So we have 3 artists here today, Marissa Tornello, Barbara Loveliner, and Jonathan Leiter, and they're going to each do a short performance. Then we'll finish with Jim Jeffers, our moderator, who will do a performance and segue into the panel. So I'll give a real short introduction to each one of you, and we're going to start with Jonathan. Jonathan, cool guy, raconteur. Jonathan Leiter is an artist, writer, and performer who has performed under the name Reuben Sandwich since 1980. He has hosted Reuben's Flophouse, evenings of variety in numerous downtown New York City spaces, and for the very first Dada, he debuted as Minnie Van Driver, International Ambassador of Love. Jonathan.
Thank you. This piece is called Piece of Hairpiece, and it is dedicated to Jeff Hendricks and Yoko Ono. just reposition myself here with this. And now, I am going to need some participation from the audience. I invite 10 of you up to come and to snip off a piece of hair.
Just a piece?
Just a piece. We'll be making a live action edition where we'll take your piece and we'll get it in here. It will be sealed and documented. And you will have a documentation of the event. Yes, I have scissors here. Anyone care to go first? I ask that you take it from the top portion. And be, well, leave some for everyone. There you go. Very nice. There you go. Thank you. Next. Please, if you want to line up over here, you got a whole flame of air up there. Would you like me to hold it for you?
No, I found just what I wanted.
Okay. Got it. If it's there, you are.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Next. Yep.
Just one hair.
May the spirit of any good be with you.
And you're with your Anthony.
Thank you.
Wait.
Oh, yeah, no, go get it. Your edition. This is going to be worth a lot of money when she. Yeah, keep holding on to that. Who's next? How are you tonight? Get the haircut. I've been having it before COVID. All pre-COVID is. Take good care of it. Hello. How are you today? Hey, Diane, you're gonna ruin it for everybody. Okay, no, I just heard that noise.
We must
Oh.
have gone to our hair smuggling school.
I've been in a class of hers, I know it.
Could I donate this to a collection?
You could donate that to a collection, yes. They're very happy to have it, I'm sure. Hi. How are you?
I give it a little shake.
Oh, you're giving it a little
Yes.
tease or something? Yes.
Good Lord, I don't know if you want her near you with scissors.
That is why I keep this hair up. There you go. Thank you.
As you notice, I took a bit.
It's okay.
Merci beaucoup.
Could be worse if I had a dentist. With the tools. It's a true story. Now, how hard would you like me to pull?
That's up to you. Come on. You're very welcome. I'd like to point out too, as it's noted on here on the back, that the opening of this envelope will void its artistic integrity. So, you can never look at the hair again. You could hold it up to the light maybe, but if you open it, you know, and it's going to be worth a lot more. You're going to certainly look at it, discover it. All right, thank you. You're very welcome. Okay. What's it gonna be? I will particularly miss those. But I know they'll be in good hands. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jonathan Leiter, or should I say, next we have Barbara Loveweiner. She expresses ideas by transforming traditional and non-traditional materials into concept-based artworks that are iconic and quirky. She performs as Ms. Muscle, and she encourages you to be your breast, to be your biggest and breast self. She'll lead you in a few exercises as part of her performance to improve your flexibility.
Hi. I'm Ms. Muscle. I hope you're ready for boot camp, Fluxus boot camp. You know? I'm not ready. Oh, no. Now I'm ready! All right. Let's get ready. Let's get flexible. Everybody, stand up. Stand up. Okay, now, you can spread out a little. Grab your hula hoop. Okay, get your hula hoop, step inside. Okay, now we're going to do some hooping. With your left hip, you're going to push the hoop around to your right. Come on. That's it. All right. You are good. Okay. That's it. Hoop. Now that you've got the rhythm in your hooping, I want you to move towards your right in a circle as you keep hooping it. So push that left hip and go around in a circle. Okay. Push that hip. Push that hip. Are you back in front? Yes. Hey. All right. Okay. Now, let's go the other way. Grab your hoop and use your right hip and push it towards the left. Okay, that's it. Now get that rhythm. Now let's go around in a circle towards your left. Okay, all right. Whoa, that's good job, good job. Whoa, this is not easy. Now you probably noticed one side is easier than the other, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so now, but we're not done. Step out of your hoop and put it on your right forearm. Okay, now get a partner. Everybody get a partner and shake hands with your partner. Okay, now what we're going to do is arm hooping, and this is good for flexibility in your shoulder and your knees. So you're going to swing your arm down and then up, down and then up. And when you go down, you have to bend your knees. When you go up, you move your shoulder. So go one, down, one. Oh, I forgot 2, 3, 4. I get excited. 5. Okay, let's switch. Now, move your hoop to your left forearm and shake hands with your left hand. And let's do it again. Okay, so we go down and up, 2, down and up. 3, down and up. 4, down and up. 5, down and up. Whoa! Okay. You know, it's warm in here, isn't it? Yeah, it is warm in here, so I commend you for working on that, but now you've got your shoulders flexible, your knees flexible, and your spine and hips flexible. We've got to work on our strength. We're going to do some push-ups. Okay, I'll demonstrate. 1, 2, I know I look funny with my boobs going in my ears, but 3, 4,
You'll fix your...
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. Good. We gotta be strong for Fluxus, man. Okay, but now, one of the things we really have to work on is combating cell phone neck. How many people are going like this all the time? Cell phone neck, cell phone back. Ms. Muscle is going to show you how to combat that. Okay. Hold your hat, and we'll do arm extensions. To the left. 1. To the right. 2. To the left. 3. To the right. 4. To the left. Whatever. 7. 8. 9. 10. Good job. Good job. All right. Now, I know that it's warm in here, but our last exercise is going to be channeling and vocalizing the energy flow. So, I'm going to talk you through it. Okay, stand with your feet hip distance apart, and you're going to go up and down on your toes. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, so you start feeling the energy. Okay, now alternate. And you start feeling that vibration. And now plant your heels and let the vibration go through your body and out your mouth. Okay. Now you're energized, and I just want to tell you, as Miss Muscle, I want you to be your breast, your biggest and breast self. So remember these exercises. Be your breast. Are you ready?
I know that in the discussion we're gonna touch on the humor, plus that's often part of Dada Dada pieces. Okay. Next we have Marissa Tornella. She is a composer, a vocalist, a performance and video artist whose work explores mental health themes through graphic score, structured improvisation, poetry, and extended vocal technique. Marissa.
So, if it wasn't so evident in the past that Fluxus flows truly in and out of all of us, Jonathan and I both brought hair really to pieces, unbeknownst of each other, which I think is nice. So, for this piece, we're just going to start off with this side of the audience saying the word hair, this side saying cut, and then the panel saying song. As loudly as you possibly can. Piercingly loud, okay?
Hair, cut, song, song, cut, hair, 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 cut, song, hair, cut, song, hair, hair, Song.
Song. Great, thank you.
I'll let it first and then just see.
Oh. Huh.
who will be the moderator for our panel today. He's a professor of graphic design and digital media at Indian River State College in Florida. He arrived yesterday, stayed at the colleges, thank you, in time for today's panel. Jim is an educator, designer, and artist, creating performance work for over 2 decades, primarily expressed in his superhero actions, which he performed with Dada at several events. Dr. Jeffers, or as we call him, Jim, is an artist and designer working with computer mediation, web art, performance, photography, and video in conjunction with conventional media. As a working artist, Jim exhibits and performs his work regularly, both in the United States and internationally. His performance work has been in public for over 2 decades, primarily expressed in the superhero action. We are so happy to have Jim here with us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Viv. And I want to recognize real quickly Indian River State College that's paying for my air travel to be here. And I want to thank all the panelists. And I'm going to start off by asking Jonathan to tell me about the first time he ever performed anything and what he remembers from that. And you have as long as it takes me to fold a bunny to tell us about it.
Okay, well, the first time I performed that was really memorable to me was actually a second performance. I had done a performance it was very kind of Laurie Anderson oriented with a lot of text and moving around. And I thought this piece was rather funny. And I met somebody on the bus and they were like, oh, we saw your piece, it was so interesting, it was so good. It was like, but did you laugh? And they were like, no. So I didn't like that so much, so I went and I created another piece called Serious Art, where I got up and started to do things like read Shakespeare, but with a lisp, or stick my toe in all my orifices of my body. I put whipped cream on my head and lit candles and sang happy birthday. And I had plants in the audience who would, when people would laugh, go, shh, this is aliens. This is aliens. Stop it. Get out, you're ruining the whole thing. And so, and I built and built until I finally like hit myself in the face with a pie, which was probably the most comedic thing I could think of. And I fell over backwards, and then they all yelled at the audience and said, get out, you see what you've done? You've killed him. Get out, get out, get out. And that was like one of my first really most memorable kind of performances.
Where was that?
That was at Rutgers. That was at Rutgers when we were studying with Jeff Hendricks, and it was actually the serious art piece was one of our performance nights. And it was even more memorable because William Pobell, a rather well-known artist now, went on before me, and we were only supposed to have about 5 or 10 minutes. And I was waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. It's like, what's going on? And finally, after about 30 minutes or so, somebody came in and said, okay, you're on. I said, what's up? Oh, he was trying to pee in a triangle on the floor.
I remember that.
Right?
The stress of having to pee.
Exactly. So what should have been a nice, short, brief, piece for the class turned out to be, as I said, it became much more memorable knowing that somebody was urinating on the floor right before me when I fell down.
Yeah. Wait, let me get it straight. So Pobell was trying to pee in a triangle?
Yes.
And he had trouble?
Yes. It's understandable.
Understandable.
Well, would you have I don't know. Well, I don't know. I have an old bladder now, so it might not be as hard to do as it used to be. But is that a bunny yet?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
There you go. There?
Okay.
Thank you for that story. Here's your money.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
It's not done yet. There's 2 more. 2 more that get together. So Barbara, first time you ever performed, and tell me about it and what was memorable about it.
I think I'm going to have to talk really slowly.
You might.
Unless are you making another bunny? Well, I got a residency at a place called the McClure Center. And this was a kind of residency that was like a city residency where we would come and meet like once a month or every 2 weeks. And as part of the residency, you would make work at home, bring it in, get critiques. But I had a mentor there who was helping me to do performance work because for some reason I decided I wanted to do performance work. I don't really know exactly why, but I decided I wanted to. So I had a mentor and they helped me to have that, I don't know, it's like giving permission. Like, yes, you can do it. You can stand up in front of people and do something, whatever you feel like doing, and they'll sit there nicely. They might think it's serious art. They might think it's funny. But I decided that I was at the time I was welding, and I was welding rattles. I was making little cages, and inside the cages I would putting nuts and bolts and other various things. So I decided that I would do a performance with my rattles. And so, of course, I called the performance Rattled. And I put them all in a row on a table, and the mentor really helped me, like, to have, well, you need a white table. Oh, you need to have like set them off with
Who was the mentor?
I forgot. I forgot her name. Sylvia.
Sylvia.
Or maybe it was Sylvie. Something like that. Anyway, she was very good. And plus, you know, it was a strange residency. There was a belly dancer there too, and she gave some tips.
That sounds like a good residency.
Yeah, it was like singers, belly dancers, artists, you know, video, painters, whatever. So anyway, I did rattle, and I would take each rattle, look at it, figure out what kind of rattle it would make, and I do kind of like dances that seemed associating with what the rattle would want. And I think I hid under the table. I remember I put my arms in this position. I wore all red. I had a red scarf on. It was really fun. That same year, and I don't know if it was actually before or after, I saw Tamara Wyndham perform with Dada. And that was amazing. I said, I want to do that. And that's when I got connected with Dada. And I wanted to perform with them ever since, whenever I could. And I just want to point out, here's her hair. I feel so left out.
So, where's the same question? First time you performed, what do you remember about it? And the backstory.
I'm tempted to give you the very first time I performed.
I want that one.
Okay. I was in church and I was 9. I was tempted to be like, maybe I shouldn't say like the first time I did a solo performance art piece. But yeah, I don't know how specific I can be with this story. Okay, I was 9, I was in the front in church with my parents, and well, the backstory before it is I would look at the choir at church and be like, they're so cool. Like, everyone else is just standing there and they're just like reading their music, and they're just so cool. So I told them that I wanted to be sitting there from now on, and that's sort of where I started singing. But the very first time I performed solo, I became a youth cantor at my church at a year in, and I remember going up there and just feeling very powerful, you know, like I have this audience in the palm of my hands kind of thing. They're gonna follow my song, you know. And so I copied the adult cantor because they would be like, you know, Alleluia, and they put their hand up, Alleluia, you know. And so then I did that. I was like this 10-year-old, like, Alleluia, and everyone sang, and I was like, it was very moving. And then I slowly started to realize over the course of the next few years that that's what I liked most about church. Which I had to reevaluate things after that. But yeah, I became very much in love with church music, and from that point on, I really was singing classical soprano stuff for a good decade, and I still love it very deeply. But yeah, that was as I tried to do. I had a choir. The choir was okay. I have some things. The choir was 10 kids, and it was led by Miss Gargoloni and Mr. Vitsky. Mr. Vitsky taught religion at St. Rita's School near Bradley Avenue, and Miss Gargoloni, Bradley Avenue,
You're on the
Winter,
island.
on the island, yeah, Myers Corners area. And Miss Gargoloni was an accordion player, an incredible musician. Like the first instrument I was with the most was around Sandy Gargoloni, and she gave me Pagliacci on soundtrack one day when I was 12, and I dived into opera after she. But they both were such incredible mentors to me, and they gave me the chance to sing solo, and then that sort of sparked my want and need to be in front of everyone and perform. And then that's transformed in a bunch of different ways. But I do remember getting up on that altar for the first time. My heart was racing. And but it also felt so exciting and powerful. And that's my origin story.
Here's your money.
Superheroes and
Here's my
supervillains.
money. Oh, thank you very much.
So I want to segue, I don't know, maybe I'll segue straight into your perceptions, because the panel is entitled Fluxus. So just real briefly, what does Fluxus mean to you as, say, a fourth, sixth? What is your relationship with Fluxus? As like a person, as an artist? You, yeah. Because you're right here.
Yeah, that's true. On a scale of 1 to 10.
Well, yeah, sure. Or on a scale of 1 to 10, or your generational, how you feel, like who your mentors were.
Oh, yeah. Well, I feel like Fluxus is a very crucial part of my performance, but I actually did not know the movement or the word until 4 years ago. I was interning and doing personal assistance for Meredith Monk when I was 19.
Okay.
And then she quickly became a mentor of mine, and that's sort of where I transitioned from classical music into extended vocal technique at that point. And her works already have so much Fluxus sort of sprinkled into them, but through her, I got to be exposed to so many other performances, particularly Accent on the Beach is one of the pivotal performances in my life so far that really shifted how I wanted to be presenting myself. And then 4 years ago, I was getting my master's at the New School, which the New School has an incredible connection in the history of Fluxus. And 2 teachers really dove in, looked at my work and said, oh, do you see that you have all these linear, there's a lot of themes that Joan Barba and Anthony Coleman. Joan was the first person to look at my work and say, oh, I'm going to just teach you about Bauhaus and Surrealism and John Cage and Merce Cunningham at the New School, and then we're going to dive right into Fluxus. And after that, I approached Anthony Coleman about starting a Fluxus club or like an ensemble at the New School, and then we cracked a bunch of eggs all over the New School, and it was the best. We went through water yarns, and the New School was very unhappy with that. There was a lot of gross eggs all over the place.
This is club. I love the idea of Fluxus club.
Yeah. That's sort of been my journey, and now that I'm aware of these people in it, that I've dived deeper into their work and have become even more inspired and influenced by their work and sort of honed in on a craft. But particularly the person that's been inspiring me the most the past few years has been Jackson Mecklow. As a sound poet, as a chance score creator, I started really diving into graphic scores that were based entirely on chance and scores that are made in performance and then performed, which I really always have to ascribe to being inspired by looking at his works and his performance.
This wasn't,
Fluxus.
yeah,
So-
this wasn't on the cheat sheet.
Yeah. Well,
So,
you were, I'll give you a little lead.
okay.
So you went straight with the white clothing and the top hat. You did all the Fluxus signifiers on that,
Fluxus signifiers, correct.
right? So the thing I'm going to ask you about is command and control. So what is it like, or what are your thoughts on when you get a whole bunch of people in an audience to follow what you're doing? And how does that? Yeah, and how does that relate to Fluxus?
Well, I think it's just kind of fun. I mean, for me, the idea of being free, fun, it's okay. You're kind of like we're playing together. That a lot of times I come from the background of making objects, sculpture, paintings, prints, even installations, big sculptures. I come from that kind of background. So the idea of, you know, making something solid that, you know, is supposed to last, it takes a long time to make, and it's hard to store, you know, it's like all the angst that goes into it. It's sort of like the freedom of just like our art is right here, right now, and we're gonna be in it together. And I think that that's what thrills me, and it's just sort of like, it's an experience, and we did it, and so I guess, you know, a lot of times I do make artwork, all different kinds, and I don't even know if it's really art or what to call it, and it's only later that I can connect it with like, oh, Fluxus, or what, you know, it's sort of like I learned the signifiers from Dada, you know. I learned, you know, like,
So in a way, this group is your school.
yes, in other words, yeah. Mhm. Exactly, you know, and then the reading and figuring out, like, you know, it's sort of like Mary Campbell saying like, oh, we're gonna go to Flux Fest in Chicago. If you want to write a score, I'll put it in the scorebook. And it's kind of like, okay, I'll do it. What's a score? You know. you know. So can I share that score? I love that. This is my score that I wrote. I think it's like one of my first ones. It was like, okay, have everybody stand up and shake your clothes off. If they don't fall off after 5 minutes, stop. You know, so
That's a good.
yeah, it's like, really, I think it's good. Anyway.
So, I had a good lead for Jonathan, but I lost it there.
I'd like to address that though, in that there is kind of a thrill when you get people to participate with you. Lydia and Viv and I used to do these girl groups, and one of them was called the Whack and Wax, where we each represented one of the, you know, sections of the military. And we did a cover version of the song from the Jetsons, Eat Up or Ka. Do you remember that? We would Judy Jetson. And we would teach the dance to the audience, and they all got up and they all did it. And there's to a ridiculous song and ridiculous choreography, but there they all were doing it, and it's kind of like, yeah, this is neat, you know? Which then, for me, also graduated to a piece I did in Chicago, speaking of Chicago, that I called, you know, command performance, where I basically pointed to people in the audience and I'd say, get up, sit down, get up, turn around, you know? And people would do that, and in fact, there is a video of the piece, which is just my mouth, so you can just hold the phone up, and it will give commands to people. And you can find it under Command Performance under my name, Jonathan Liger, on YouTube. It's free for use. Use it on your iPhone. It's a fun little party gift or something.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
So what's the difference between performing a piece like that where you expect people to participate to a group like this? We're all primed, we all like performance art, we're likely to do it. Compare that to being out maybe on the street, where we have gone out on the street, and I'll say regular people, just passerbys, and suddenly you're trying to get them to do stuff. What's the difference? How do you handle that?
Personally, yeah. If people don't want to engage, then I not expend the energy. But sometimes it's about a pitch, or, you know, drawing them in with something like, hey, you know, we're doing a tea exchange. We'll exchange you some tea for something you have on you. Which is, we did as one of the parades. Now, certain people didn't, you know, either didn't get it or didn't want to participate, but then other people were like, oh, well, you know, I have some gum, and it's like, okay, you can have a regular Lipton tea bag for some gum. And then the gentleman who's in here, you know, had little paintings he had brought, so we traded for paintings and things, and we gave him better tea, needless to say, too. You know, you can't make people do something, but I often find that, you know, in the right environment, yes, or in this kind of environment, people are more than willing to participate, and that's sort of the great part about performing.
I have a follow-up question to that. Have you ever had someone actively dislike your work in public? Because I know you've walked around to people and asked them to do things like, or stuff.
Right,
Have you
right,
had, what was?
right. So as Art Not Places, I went as Ms. Muscle, and I was singing. I am wooden, hear me roar. So I would then, get attention. People would look at me. And so what I would do is say like, oh, do you want to roar with me? And so they would have to, be willing, But I would get other people, like, oh, like scared, kind of like playing up or like, nice tits,
Yeah, lots of that.
So I would get
Those are
cat
good.
calls, and so I had to be prepared to just, be there for, whatever was going to come my way. And there is kind of like a, like getting into, like really embracing the persona.
And for like when you get the heckles, the cat calls, what was your response?
Yes.
Okay. Right?
Yes, thank you for sharing, or like, yes, hi, glad you like it, thank you, absolutely. I mean, it was like I'm inviting, wherever you're at.
Yeah.
So.
Not me. No, I was more like the Vegas act. It's like, get your shoes off the stage, hippie. When you have a show, you can talk. I'm talking now,
You fight back.
Oh, yeah, mini was, that was usually as a mini man driver kind of event where, there was an audience, there were music, there were other people. So, yeah, it was more of a, you didn't know what you were going to get, and you had to improvise a lot with, sometimes, yeah, otherwise, yes, otherwise you just have to kind of go with it and ignore them.
Well, and also I think drag culture has a different reaction to audience participation. Negative and positive, as opposed to like public performance where you're inviting anybody.
Well, we would often do things like, there's a woman who lives up here, Helen Levin, and she came to and she invented this whole thing about kooky karaoke or something, where you would sing a song and you didn't sing the words. It was just la 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 and da da da, and that became kind of a thing where, I would we'd sing La Vie en Rose together, and then I'd get the guys just to sing it, and the girls just to sing it, and then just me, and so, you can, people, that was kind of a silly, thing that wasn't my thing necessarily, but it got, people responded to it, and I would do it often, especially if Helen showed up. We would give out, she gave me a diploma, so it shows that I'm legally allowed to do karaoke. Permission granted.
So, live performance work, have you ever had issues with audience participation in?
Yeah, well, I for a few years I was doing body painting.
You
And
took that off your website in between when this panel was announced. And,
wow, you noticed that?
yeah.
Well, it's because I'm teaching children right now.
Okay.
Not that
I was like, where's that? I wanted to see the because I was gonna,
it still exists.
I was gonna tie it into like.
You can do marisabel.com/bodypaint.
Oh, okay. I was gonna ask you questions about like Marvel.
Marvel.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
all over body painting
Yeah.
superhero stuff.
Oh, yeah. Well, in general, it was a performance for sure in itself. You have an artist, you have a line of models. And I did it for about 5 years. I actually stopped because of the audience, the issue with some hecklers. There's a lot of people that I should open this up by saying we're fully nude. Like in
Yeah,
public.
they're like naked.
Naked, and a lot of people really don't like that for a variety of reasons. But there was this one situation where, and we have a permit with us. Like it's a performance, so it's legal technically because we are in a performance space when we're doing it. But there was this one guy that came up to us and was screaming because we were posing there was like an acro yoga pose. So I was being elevated on top of this guy's feet, and this guy comes over and he's just like, saying how disgusting it was, and then his girlfriend comes over and she starts yelling at us, and she's like,
And this was like a, you had to somehow check into this space. You weren't just like,
it was a park.
oh, was it open
Yeah.
to the public?
It was open to the public. Yeah.
So I was thinking about like Kemper Faller, like Fluxus floor of Ken Black. You wouldn't just like throw that out in the public. You would like,
Yeah.
you would have to go to a space and be like, I know what I'm in for,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna see things that I can't unsee.
Yeah, it's Bryant Park, Times Square, you know, Guggenheim, in front of the Guggenheim Museum. So, you know, areas that a lot of people are walking past. And initially, I would just ignore them, but then it did get to a point where, you know, everyone's coming from a different place in terms of their relationship with unity. So, I stopped doing it. But I think it's beautiful, and I wish the climate wasn't like that. It's honestly gotten a bit more hostile since, yeah.
So let's lighten this up and talk about
Yeah.
puns. Puns in camp, right? So I think there's a certain amount, at least from the performances we had here, there was a little like, there were some elements of like, certainly with Barbara's piece, puns, for sure. And the humor was evident, and Jonathan's relationship to camp when like, you know, even just drag in its very nature has an element of camp in it. And so what's your relationship to puns in camp? Because this quiz had some language things in it that weren't really interesting.
Yeah, a lot of my work, most of my work tends on the bit of the darker side of things, but then I really like to also shake it up and do some works that are, you know, scores that are working with live objects. So last year I did the fruit scores, which was everyone had to, I made a score out of fruit, and then the musicians had to perform it and then eat the whole score. But they had to like lick the
You
plate.
need to clarify this for everyone. The fruit was cut up as a score, right?
Yes, I
so
cut
it's
it
a
up.
score and a score.
Yeah, it's a score and a score. I cut it up as part of the performance, each musician. So sort of the campiness of it was they had to lick it clean. They had to make sure they had every single inch of that score.
Including peels?
Everything that was edible, I took the peels and put it in a jar, and then our percussionist at the end played all the peels and the kids and everything. But that's, you know, and this kind of score where there's many kinds of hair involved. So using the elements outside that decay eventually, and then sort of bringing a new role to it.
So I'm going to recount something that happened to me. I'm gonna take privilege as the moderator. So the first time I had all these performance ideas, but the first time I ever ended up at a Fluxus event was Alan Hansen's birthday party.
Ooh.
And he had just died, I think, the year before. So I'm sitting at this table with B.B. Hansen, Beck's mom, Beck Hansen, none of we done that, it's just one thing. So I'm sitting at this table with Dick Higgins, Allison Knowles, Carolee Steeman, and I get pulled up because I'm the only person who knows how to use a slide projector. Carolee and Allison have me come up and like use the slide projector as a grad student. And then the next thing I know, I'm holding the score for them as they made their score out of onion skins and beans. And then put it in plastic, and then myself and Mike Maxwell held the score up while Allison Knowles and Carolee Steeman played the score. And at the end of the performance, and Allison Knowles still, I think even to this day, would still put her hand on the seat and go, Jim, sit next to me. But she rolled it all up and she gave it to me at the end of the piece. So that's scores and sorry. So just a little story.
Did it smell eventually?
No. It was dried onion. It was just the outside. It wasn't the actual meat of the onion. It was just the paper part. At least I think so. She signed it too. So and her daughter came up to me, Hannah Higgins, and was like, you better keep that It's really valuable.
Feedback.
Yeah, she was really funny. I was like, okay. And I almost didn't know what I'd just done until Carolee called me up the week after that, asked me to work with her. So that's a whole different story. Yeah. Sorry.
I'm wondering,
What?
like, maybe, I don't know, if people need to know more definition of what a score is, or like all the luminaries that you just mentioned in the whole
Oh,
Fluxus
yeah.
world.
No, I just dropped a whole bunch of names. And
Yeah, I don't know
they're all
how-
the people you have to look up. And it's
Yeah, I don't know how
totally
familiar-
boring if you don't know what I'm talking about. and That's fine.
Maybe they can tell us what they feel a score is.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, I think we started talking about it with puns. Like,
Going out to a bar, getting lucky.
to score, that's a verb. There's score the noun. There's also to score something where you cut it, right? Like I did with the bunnies. So there's an interesting bunch
Sports.
of
Sports.
you could score, right? A touchdown or a point or a goal. So there's all these ways that we're dealing with score. And Marissa took it and made fruit and scored the fruit and then had people play it. Because a musical score would be something.
Was it staff paper?
No, it was late.
It was a plate. But there's, I mean, in the history of Fluxus, that score comes about where Dick Higgins got the Piscataway police department to go take machine guns out and shoot staff paper, and then had musicians come and play it from the machine guns. So that's Fluxus. That was like, you know, the whole term intermedia comes from Dick Higgins making that assertion.
I got introduced to that idea through working with a lot of Fluxus people, and we went to Rutgers. Rutgers was a big center for a lot of people from the Fluxus movement, like Al Hansen and Jeff Hendricks amongst them, and so that's where I was first starting to hear everything. And I remember Jeff led a tour around Rutgers campuses where different famous Fluxus events had happened. And we went to a barn and we went to a theater. And one thing I noticed during that whole thing was, oh yes, this is where we did like a Flux Mass. And yeah, it was a big, big, well-known piece. And after that trip though, and for one of our events here, I was always thinking, well, there are all these, it's a score for a mass, so I had created it, well, I call it a cantata, which is the 12 tribes of Fluxus, which is kind of based on like Passover and the songs at the end where you sing about numbers. So this goes from 1 to 12. It kind of makes some references to, in fact, we were talking about Alexis and Mishnah, where there's, number 6 is the order of the Mishnah. I just call it a flux score. Take 5 books, split them apart, and then make 6 books out of them. So yeah, that's what, to me, that was more like the scores I was seeing, or Yoko Ono's Grapefruit or something, where they're just sort of statements or commands as well, but at the same time, Fluxus has this big music influence too, so there's this wonderful kind of cross-generation of what the term means.
I mean, it's John Cage, and so relating back to what you were saying about the New School, right? So John Cage's class at the New School is where all of these people did their training, basically, to learn all this stuff. And he was using a chain to randomly generate scores so that he could play music, and which he called music. He always called it music. So, and that kind of history of that stuff that we're sort of all building off of, John Cage becomes a seminal figure who kind of, from Klaus Oldenburg to Jeff Hendricks to everybody, took that class with him and then learned whatever that was, learned the stuff that he knew.
But aren't scores also a documentation of performance art? Because it's so ephemeral and so here and now, a score becomes a sign that this existed, besides documentation like videos and such.
Right, which, I mean, you could say it's sort of even a precursor to all the sort of conceptual art that came after it, like Saul LeWitt, basically, is that a score where he gives instructions on how to paint a painting on the wall. So instructions, basically. But yeah, then the piece is documented, then the piece can be reperformed, right? Because it's hard sometimes to get that if you don't have that documentation too.
But it is a way to share your performances. Marissa, do you ever make scores for other people too?
Yeah, I've been very inspired by like the instructional score history. Sometimes I'll just write a simple score, like find an old object that's broken, make sound out of it. You know, I Grapefruit, been very inspired by Water Yen by George Brack, also is an incredible instructional score book. And then also just graphic scores with visual art. I have a pretty loose definition of score. I consider it like basically anything that also, my same opinion of art, which is anything that can be interpreted as such is that. So like if you look at the tree moving in the wind and the fog, like that can be a score. You know, or if you're looking at clouds in the sky, that can be a score. If you look at it like a score. If you look at it like something that you can interpret artistically.
But I want to get back to what you said too, in that, you know, it is a documentation in a way, but it also provides a guideline for somebody else to do it. And I think that's one of the also interesting parts about Fluxus, that it isn't about fussy little objects. There is this fun kind of game-like, punny quality to things, and it takes away from the preciousness, I think, of the art object. Right. Where, yes, you can say it's an art object because it's a score, but it's the action, unless you do the score, that it isn't really, it's just words on paper, right?
I've come from it in another kind of way, where I've done things with Dada group, like the art nurses. And once again, Mary Campbell's going to make a score book for art nurses, and says, like, well, you know, why don't I contribute something about the art nurse? My art nurse Barbara's specialty is doing third eye exams. So she said, why don't you write a score, you know, like contribute a score about that? So it's like a performance I've made many different riffs of, you know, over the different times of being an art nurse. And then all of a sudden sort of sitting down and think like, oh, well, how can I write an instruction for somebody else to do this? Or what actually, you know, and thinking of a creative way to do it, a little open-ended. And so that's, you know, sort of coming from it from the other way of, you know, like performing something and then feeling like, oh, you know, I'll write a score for that.
Yeah,
So,
doing it and then.
yeah, sort of like doing the score after the fact.
So actually, questions from the audience?
I wanted to ask about, mentioning that performance art coming out of this, and I wanted to ask about comedy. Have any of you performed comedy, or are there artists who have gone back and forth between doing like absurd performance pieces and actually performing in comedy clubs? Because Jonathan, you're particularly...
I dabbled, yes. I came from a theater background.
Right.
And it was during college where I suddenly discovered like this whole other art world, and, you know, 9 events, and didn't know that, you know, performance could be a lot of different things. And I remember trying my chops at comedy. And I found it was tough. It's a tough field. It's a different field. So I did it once or twice, and then I went back to doing more, you know, performance-based things, whether it was something that might be theatrical or more performance art-based.
Can I mention Nancy Richards, who is a comedian, performs. She joined our group, and she had a hard time figuring out how to do it without that rhythm of telling a joke, and because there's a whole comedic circle, and she did some performances. She did great, but she said it was tough to break some habits. And she said, I don't want to get up there and just tell jokes. I want to do a performance.
I would break that brings me to like an idea about what's the difference between all these performative art forms, right? Like, what makes Fluxus Fluxus? What makes Dada Dada before Fluxus? What makes like a one-person show on Broadway different than performance art? Like, right? Like, we ask these questions, and there's people that are fluid, like and if you're Smith or someone like that who like goes between all those really tall and right, goes between those worlds in a kind of fluid way, where some people are certainly like not that, they're this and they're not that. Right? I would say that I do stand-up comedy all the time because I'm a teacher. So I am
And do your students laugh?
Yes, they do. Yeah. In fact, one of them was going to sign me up for open mic night. And then she left town.
That's like, what's it? Vladimir, I'm trying to say the Ukrainian pronunciation, Zelensky.
Oh,
Prince for his TV show, right? Sum Up, which was kind of that, right?
Yeah. Well, when art imitates life, and then life imitates art really quickly, and then, like, if you watch the show, there's a scene where he's like, "What does Putin wear this watch?" And I was like, "Oh my god!" But anyway, yeah, it's just so messed up.
Want to take another question?
Vladimir Zelensky. Questions?
There's two artists that kind of link Fluxus to happenings, which, I mean, Allison Knowles and John Cage, and I'm wondering, is there a direct link, or do you see them as a different thing, or an extension of it, or how do you look at happenings in relationship to
Or not, right? I have opinions about it, but
I feel like when looking at Allison Knowles, there's so much more of, like, the audience behavior is so much more seminal to the result of the work. Whereas I feel like John Cage, like, there's the separation of audience and artist. That would be what I would find is the biggest difference. But how they execute happening, at least, like, to see, like, when you witness, I'm forgetting the name of the piece with the salad.
And how to make it.
How to make it sound. Like, the audience behavior is so crucial to that, and to how, and what makes it fully iterated. But
tuna salad sandwich. She made a piece about a tuna sandwich. Well, I mean, I think the connection there is Alan Capra.
Oh, yes,
So,
of course.
like, Alan Capra took everything and put it together, and it's all about audience participation, and it's all about the score, and it's all about this stuff. And he was the weirdest dude, one of the weirdest dudes I've ever met, and completely, like, he wrote a score for the thing, and people were like, this is amazing, like, what do we do? And he's like, just throw it away. Throw it away. It's trash. It's not a thing. So it was like, really about the ephemerality of the whole experience, which I think Allison Knowles sort of does, and Cage, again, I think you nailed it. Cage is more performative, right? Like, he's more like, you're the audience and I'm the performer, and the other ones are involving the audience more.
But probably Cage, not a formal structure for the performance length or things like that. I think things are determined by chance
Yeah.
in the big happening events. So, you know, Allison Knowles and Capra were both at Cal Arts when I was a student. So
That's cool.
Yeah, Allison had us do some piece where we attached things to that could be flown up into the air, and it was interpreted as a score. Remember, but the thing about drugs was too heavy. She won't kill anybody in this performance. But I myself didn't know the direct line between Fluxus and
well, okay.
happenings, if there was one. So that's why
You know, the history is Alan Capra taught at Rutgers, and Lucas Samaras turned in his famous thesis for his BFA, which was fuck, all the way down U, and Alan Capra signed off on it, and he was fired from Rutgers, and so then he went to UC San Diego and started the program with Alan Anthony and everybody there, and then it all goes like multiple circles back to Rutgers, almost always back to Rutgers. So you had Alan Capra, Jeff Hendricks there, at the same time. So there you go.
Bob Watts.
Bob Watts, right?
Bob Watts.
Bob Watts, don't forget Bob Watts. But yeah, so there's the connection. Like he was already there, and then the famous story is like he told Liechtenstein keep painting Mickey Mouse, and like he told so Alan Kepler took credit for everything. Pop art is his. Everybody. And I was sitting at lunch with him, and he goes, the problem with this generation? You guys just need to get a job. You just get a job, work. You have to work. You don't just make art. You got to get a job. You get a job. And I was like, Alan, what'd you do? And he's like, I went into teaching, and we all laughed.
Do you want to take one more question?
Yeah, one more
and then
question.
finish up?
Sure. So this is all kind of new for me, but getting the sense Fluxism is very experimental.
You'll get your tattoo at the end of the... Or chipping. Would you like a chip or a tattoo?
A chip would be great.
Okay.
Keep track of it. I get the sense it's very experimental and very sometimes ephemeral in terms of what it is because it's performance, right? I'm just wondering if anybody on the panel can kind of give me some examples maybe where you see more traditional mass media and you say that's an obvious Fluxus influence on something more mainstream.
Seinfeld,
Yeah.
show about nothing. That's kind of Fluxus to me. It's like, what's it about? It's about nothing. It's about whatever's going on right here, right now, supposedly. But that was a very kind of, play on words kind of idea. It's like exactly, or just, it's basic. Or on the other hand, it could be like, what's her name, Abramovich, She just sits there in the room for a year and stares at you.
And Shia LaBeouf did a bunch of performance art pieces directly inspired by Maria Abramovich, but no one would necessarily use the word performance art, even though that's exactly what he was doing in a lot of public spaces.
Well, I mean, even someone like Sia, right? That's straight up performance art, right? The fact that she's doing the singing part, but also the whole, and then getting people like Maddie, what's her name, to do the dancing for her and do the whole thing, and that's where Shia LaBeouf tie that in.
Right.
But I was like, there's definitely that. There's definitely some big influences of that.
I just want to say something
Oh.
because,
Jackass.
oh, sorry.
Jackass.
Yeah.
Not you, the show.
That what I noticed is that all of your pieces, I don't know exactly what to call them,
Pieces.
had some meaning because there was the value was in the experience of it. And, it's kind of a new experience, so there's a value in that. As opposed to.
Right, well, that's one of the things I like about it too. Again, getting away from this preciousness of something on the wall where it's or people would sometimes say to me, are you going to do it again? And I'm like, no, you were either there or you weren't there. You either experienced it or you didn't. And I'm moving on, come see the next thing, but no. Especially early on when I was doing sort of performance stuff, people would ask me that. And I like that ephemeral thing, or I also do a lot of mail art work, which a lot of Fluxus people participate in as well. And it's because you create something and then it just goes out into the world. So other people might have it, whether they keep it or not, who knows. I did a mail art piece once where you open it up and there's a piece of paper and it said, throw this away and keep the envelope. So then it becomes a paradox for you as the person receiving it. It's like, do I do that? That's the score, but if I do throw it away, then it's not the piece anymore.
And there was also, it was art because we were seeing something about you in each one of these pieces. So there was an artistic part to it as well that I think was very unique to each one of you.
Thank you.
Yes, intention and personal touch.
But I think his question was really interesting about where it overlaps in the real world, right? That's sort of the gist of your question.
Yeah.
And I think, like it or not, Jackass was the biggest thing that was really performance art and taken to the extreme. Like it was so much of that, of Chris Burton nailing himself to a Volkswagen that became popular culture. And the one thing that I think is really interesting, Johnny Knoxville interviewed and asked about it, cited all of those people, like Chris Burton, Maria Abramovic, like just, and it was like, oh, like these idiots actually know stuff, which I thought was really interesting. So,
Oh, and you recall yourself a teacher.
Yeah.
Yes.
idiots know stuff.
Yes.
That's the motto. So,
Mhm.
you want to MC us out?
I will MC us out. Well, I would like to thank our panel, Jim Jeffers, Marissa Ranello, Barbara Loveliner, and Jonathan Leiter, and thank them